Good morning. Today we're going to read Ephesians chapter 4, verses 14 through 16. However, for context sake, I'm going to read a couple verses prior. So I'm not going to speak on those. We spoke on them yesterday. But to give us the context of the passage, starting in verse 11, Paul says, "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up, until we all reach the unity of the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by every cunning and craftiness of people and their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him the whole body is joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love, as each part does its work." So yesterday we talked about how Paul shared Christ descended from heaven to earth and then reascended, sent his Spirit, has gifted his church with spiritual gifts to glorify God and to benefit neighbor. And really I want to hit on this last part here, which is in verse 16. We get this picture of first, prior to that, that these are all bound together by love. But in verse 16, that the whole body is joined and held together through this love, through the love of God. But then he says by every supporting ligament, and he's given the picture of the body, like a real body, but these ligaments refer to their members, because he says it grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Is each member, is what he's getting at, does his work. Each person in the church is called to use their gifts, both physically and perhaps naturally, but most importantly, spiritually. Whatever God has gifted you with once you become a believer and has imparted his gifts into your life, then we're to use those gifts. We're to use our life and resources, wisdom, practical, all of these gifts that God has enabled us with for the church. But as I said, most importantly, if it's teaching, to teach; if it's hospitality, to be hospitable; love, encouragement, teaching, faith, prayer. All these things are gifts God gives people in the church to bless others, not just yourself. So it's important we are using our gifts to bless others in the church, that we might be, as Paul said here, this church that's fully equipped, this church that's built up, this church that actually uses the love of God in the life of the church. So be part of that process today. Be part of that change, I should say. Hopefully it's already occurring, but be part of that continual change that goes out into the world. Have a blessed day. We'll see you guys tomorrow.